Hi everyone, welcome to Module 4 of EDU 593 on data collection tools. We'll be going through the overview and the learning materials as well as your assignment for this module, which is your proposal development paper stage 4 or paper 4. So let's get started. This module builds upon the prior modules where you've been building out your action research proposal. We built the background, the problem, the focal areas, your research questions. You've identified all of that. You've gone into the approach to your action research, and now we're really diving deep into the data collection tools that you will be using to collect data for your action research study. So just really important to remember that whatever tools you select and the strategy that you use, it derives from the very research questions that you've asked. We really need to be sure that everything is aligned in our study, that the data collection tools align to the information that we want to gather, the intervention that we want to study. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. We also really want to make sure another guiding principle to keep in mind is triangulating the data. So making sure that we're not relying on a single source of data, that you're using triangulation to corroborate, to extend, to challenge that information by collecting it through multiple and complementary strategies. And then the other thing that to keep in mind in this module as we're thinking about data collection is to really be specific about the times for data collection, whether you're doing whether you're doing post, how frequently, are you attempting to gather multiple sources, and if so, from whom and when, and then just remembering that that's all really important. The other thing to keep in mind is there are a lot of strategies presented in this chapter, and it might be easy to feel overwhelmed. Do not worry about trying to capture every single data collection tool in your study. That is not possible. The goal is to pick the data collection tools that best align to the study that you want to do, to the research questions that you have identified. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this module. So again, the objectives are you're going to demonstrate an understanding of the use of observations, interviews, surveys, artifacts, and documents. And this chapter, again, does a really great job of going into each of these from the qualitative and quantitative standpoint. Then you're going to, after you've built that understanding, select those appropriate tools for your action research study, and then you're going to demonstrate understanding of primary versus secondary data analysis. The assignments that are due is your paper 4 and reflection 4, so keep that in mind as you go through this module. Regarding your paper 4, you're going to be developing this paper. It's a sequential proposal, so you're continuing to build on what you've already done in addition to revising your paper 3 from last week. So you're going to follow the procedure that you've done before, which is uploading your paper 3. You're going to add this on to your other papers so that you're just including one document, and then highlighting your revisions. Making sure that you are including information about your data tools, your justification of why you're using these tools. If you're using an existing survey, make sure to include that in the appendix, and then include a few questions of the survey that you're going to be using in the body of the paper itself. So be sure to cite the survey and explain and justify why you're using this, why it's appropriate for your study to answer your research questions. The other one is if you're planning to use maybe or modify existing measures, then make sure that you're describing how you're going to check for reliability and validity of any sort of pilot, to make sure that the questions that you're going to be using measure and indeed are going to get to what you need to know to answer your research questions. So make sure that if you're planning to do a planned pilot, to include information and details about how you will accomplish this. So that would get to the reliability and validity information. But if you're using an existing survey, then that reliability and validity information should already exist, and you can include that in your paper. And then you need to also include details on your data analysis. How are you going to analyze the data that you collect? For example, if you're doing observations, if you're doing interviews or focus groups, all of these are covered in this chapter. How are you going to analyze it? So make sure that you draw on some of your prior coursework around methodology and integrate that into this section of your paper. So in thinking about, an example, for example, some of the research I'm doing right now is around the problem of computational thinking not being taught in elementary school. And so we identified a place to include that, and that is in the elementary science classroom. And then layered on top of that, we want to really look at how computational thinking can be taught to every student in elementary science class through culturally responsive teaching. And so that is kind of our problem that we're trying to address, and to make sure that every student gets computational thinking. And to do that, we're training teachers around culturally responsive teaching, computational thinking, and elementary science, and how to integrate those. And so the research question is, how can we enact computational thinking integrated science education with culturally responsive teaching strategies? And so some of the data collection that we are doing here is we're doing focus groups, we're doing artifact collection, so we're collecting teacher lesson plans, we are doing some surveys, we're doing a mix of methods as we collect data to find out how the teachers are enacting and reflecting upon the computational thinking, culturally responsive teaching in their science classrooms. So all of that, we have to have, the consent letters, we have to be thinking about the surveys that we're using, we're thinking about the questions and the protocol we're including for the focus groups. So, and we're aligning it all to those research questions and the problem that we want to get at in education. So just really thinking about that alignment all the way through your study, all the way down to the data collection tools, and then eventually how we're going to analyze this. So that is it for this paper. So just make sure that you're including all the elements. Keep in mind all the reminders that I included in this. Read the chapter. There's a lot of great details in there, a lot of examples, a lot of great guidance. And remember, for your reflection, to read through and go through the activities and exercises, but then when you write your synthesis, synthesize it as applying it to your research questions, to your two focal problems. And then remember, just a friendly reminder to continue working on the annotated bibliography and continue to add to that. And then that, which is separate from your lit review, your literature review, is what is in your paper, which you will then include in the references section in alphabetical order, but your annotated bibliography is capturing those two focal areas of your research. So it should pretty much be done at this point, but you're trying to get at least a balance of like those 15 articles that we referred to earlier on in this course. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm available by email and also by appointment by Zoom. So have a great week, and look forward to seeing your proposals as they continue to develop.